This episode of the Black Girl Boss Podcast is brought to you by FreshBooks. FreshBooks is a super simple invoicing solution that lets you create and send slick, professional-looking invoices in seconds. I personally use FreshBooks in my business to send invoices to my clients, to send recurring invoices to monthly clients. I use it to track my expenses. I actually switched over from using QuickBooks to using FreshBooks. And to be honest, not just because they're a sponsor, but I truly love FreshBooks because it's just super duper easy. It's very user friendly. So I can log on to my FreshBooks dashboard and see exactly what how my business is doing. I can see when my invoices are going to be sent out. I can see what invoices are past due, who I need to follow up with, all of that good stuff. So I love FreshBooks. It allows me, I can take a picture of my receipt, upload it right into FreshBooks, and it'll track all of my expenses for me. And to be honest, my favorite part about FreshBooks though is that if I have a question or if I need help with anything, I can just call and talk to a real person. I know a lot of these invoicing softwares, you got to call and deal with these automated systems. So FreshBooks, somebody picks up super quick and I get to talk to a live person and get help on what I'm looking for. So I definitely suggest that for all of you guys that are trying to get better with your expenses, find a new invoicing solution, or just find a better way to run your business on the back end. Definitely check out FreshBooks for free for 30 days by just going on www.gofreshbooks.com/blackgirlboss and enter Black Girl Boss Podcast in the How Did You Hear About Us section. So one more time, go to www.gofreshbooks.com/blackgirlboss. Let's start the show.
Work hard for what you want in life.
You work hard for what you want in life.
That your word is your bond, that you do what you say you're going to do.
That your word is your bond, and you do what you say.
That you treat people with dignity and respect.
That you treat people with respect.
Reach of your dream and your willingness to work hard.
The strength of your dreams and your willingness to work for them.
Work hard.
Work hard.
Work hard.
Work hard.
Work hard. Work hard.
Hey guys, it's Tatum. Welcome to episode 55 of the Black Girl Boss Podcast. Today, you guys, I was looking at like a list. I have a running spreadsheet of topics to cover on the podcast. And so this week I was really looking at my list and none of the topics really jumped out enough for me to be able to really talk to you guys passionately about it. One thing that I don't do when it comes to this podcast is I don't like to over prepare. I do write down like certain points, but I don't like to over prepare because I feel like the podcast is just a lot better when it's more genuine, when I'm able to kind of just talk to you guys, especially doing a podcast by myself. I'm literally talking to myself. So it's better for me to kind of just like talk to you guys, even though you're not in front of me, but really just talk to you guys from the heart and not just read off of a bunch of notes. This isn't an audio book. This is a podcast. So as I was looking through my list, it was just like nothing on there was really like jumping out to me. And so it took me a while to really get this out because I was waiting for the right thing. And then this week, I haven't really been sitting down working in my business as much as I normally do. My fiance and I moved this week, so it's been a lot of moving, packing, moving, unpacking, getting the place together and all this other stuff. So I was just asking God, just as I'm going through the things that I have to do this week, like, can you just drop into my spirit what it is that I need to talk to everybody about on the podcast? I mean, if push comes to shove, I definitely can have a conversation off of what was on my list, but I really just like to make sure whatever I talk to you guys about is something that I'm very passionate about and I can really speak from the heart because I want every episode to really just resonate with you guys. So today's episode is going to be about how to make room for God in your business, and not necessarily just the how to, but I want to talk to you guys about how necessary it is for you to make room for God in your business. And this actually came to me today when I was at church. God has been like downloading some things into my spirit this week. And it's crazy because like I said, I have not been sitting down doing things in my business. And actually, I'm being very intentional this year to not be as type A this year, so that I can really, really let my spirit lead me, and not my own intelligence or my own business savviness, if that's a word. Yeah, but man, God is good, because I've gotten like some really good ideas this week. And I know when I get ideas, especially in times when I'm not able to really do anything with them, I just put them in my phone. And especially when I like hear something from God, I always ask like, well, when do I need to do this? And he'll tell me, and I'll be like, all right, cool. And then I'll write it down and I'll go back to it when it's time. So I got some really great ideas that I'm going to execute on ASAP. So it's going to be some amazing things coming. But something that a lot of you guys really reach out to me about is my relationship with God. In 2017, I started sharing a lot more about my relationship with God as an entrepreneur, and really just sharing with you guys my growth and how I was being intentional about certain things, and then also the results of it. Because I think that the same way people don't really let you into the process of building a successful business, I don't think people really let you into the process of building a strong relationship with God either. And just as I grow and as my business grows, I'm starting to understand for me how the two correlate, and how letting you guys into the intimate relationship that is me and God's relationship, how important that is to my purpose. And it's not something that I knew I was going to be doing before. But what we're going to be talking about today is so necessary, because I think that what's really holding a lot of people up from their business reaching the levels that they want to reach, or the reason why a lot of you guys are hitting glass ceilings and not understanding why you can't just break through, why you can't just get over that fear so you can finally start your business, or why can't you just get to that point where you're making enough money to leave your job, or why can't you just get to that point where your business is able to function without you and you're able to take time off, or why can't you just get to that point of whatever it is that your goal is. And a lot of times it's because of the lack of a relationship with God, and really allowing God to be in your business. And so we've talked about this on our, I forgot the episode it was, but the title was Being a Black Girl Boss and a Christian. So definitely go back and listen to that. But today I want to cover a couple points about making room for God in your business, because I may have been a little off in a sense when I said being a Black girl boss and a Christian, because that implies that the two are different, and I don't want to make that mistake again. And that actually leads me to my first point, which is the business and the spiritual are not separate. Your business life, your entrepreneur life, your Black girl boss life, and your life as a woman of God or a man of God, for the guys that are listening, are not separate. They're one. But what happens is, a lot of people try to separate the two. You know what I mean? It's somehow it's like God only applies to your personal life. God only applies to finding your husband. He only applies to, mending your relationship with your father. Like, he only applies to you getting over your depression and anxiety. It's like he only applies to that. But God is literally the best business partner ever. Like I told you guys before, this week I have not really been working like that, but I've gotten some amazing ideas because I allow God to be everything, including the CEO of my business. So if I'm sitting down and I'm listening to a sermon, or I'm reading my Bible, or I'm praying, or I'm worshiping, or whatever, and I get this idea, I'm like, oh, hold on, I need to write that down. I know that idea comes straight from God, but we have to understand that the business and the spiritual are not separate. You can't set these goals, let's say for your business, and have these long to-do lists every single day, and then never pray, or never talk to God, or never run it past him to be like, hey, is this even what I need to be doing? You know, I've shared stories on this podcast before about how God totally disrupted my plans one day and had me watch the movie War Room because I needed to understand the importance of strategic prayer. Not necessarily for whatever it is I was doing that day, but for the big picture. You know what I mean? And that movie and the things that I did following that were allowing me to lay an amazing foundation and allowing me to just be more obedient and grow closer to God. I've told you guys how there's been times where I've asked God about people who I was thinking about, or people who I was bringing on as clients, and he was like, no, don't work with that person. And then I had to give these people their money back and be like, no, we can't work together. So these things happen, but you have to check with God. Like, I don't wish that I could tell you what happens when you're disobedient, because I don't personally want to deal with the consequences to actually tell you about it. But I'm pretty sure that if I would have taken on the clients that he told me no, that something would have happened. I don't know what it would have been, but something would have happened. You know what I mean? I'm pretty sure that if after I understood the power of tithing, that if I deliberately didn't tithe, I'm pretty sure I would not have any money. I'm pretty sure there will always be a bill coming up or something that seems to be always attacking my finances, no matter how much money I make. You know what I mean? And I've shared with you guys last year, I shared with you guys like the first page of my prayer journal last year, where I asked God for three things. I asked God for, this was in my prayer journal for 2016, and I was writing about 2017. And I asked God for three things. I asked him for a husband. I asked him for financial freedom. I didn't want to be living paycheck to paycheck anymore. And I asked him to be a full-time entrepreneur. And all three of those things happened in 2017. But I also committed to my relationship with God in 2017. And what that meant was fasting every single week, a lot of prayer, a lot of surrendering, a lot of just stopping things that I used to do. So in order for me to get to this point where I am in my business, which is nowhere compared to what God has for me, I had to understand that the business and the spiritual are not separate at all. I had to start talking to God like he was some physical person that I admired in business. I'm trying to think of who. Oh, of course, Jay-Z. I had to start talking to God and taking heed to what he says and what his words are, as if I was talking to Sean Carter, aka Jay-Z. For y'all that don't know, that's Jay-Z's real name. But I had to start talking to him as if I was talking to Jay-Z. Like, all right, God, like what do you have in store for me in 2018? And God told me financially what he has in store for me this year, and I got confirmation on it. And for you guys that don't know, confirmation is just something that, let's say if you feel like you're supposed to quit your job, and then you may hear somebody say something about like quitting your job, and it hits home in your spirit, like you just feel it. That's what we call confirmation. And for you guys that are praying for things and you're not even sure if you're hearing from God or not, it's always okay to wait for confirmation and ask God, like, God, I think that you're telling me that it's time for me to shut this business down and do this other business. Like, can you please give me confirmation, because I want to make sure I'm doing the right thing? And he will give you confirmation in that. But I think too many times we're only going to God when it comes to personal things and not in our business. So I really wanted to make that first point, that the business and the spiritual are not separate. So you have to make room for God. You have to when you're creating your goals for 2018 and you're creating your goals for first quarter or second quarter or whatever, and you're breaking them down like we talked about last week into those, let's say you have those yearly goals and you're breaking them down into those quarterly, monthly, weekly, daily. If God is not in any of that, then you're already failing, because you're not consulting the source. Let's be real here, you guys. Like, when it comes to with me and my relationship with God, I really have to think of him like a real person. So think about this. If somebody already knew your end from your beginning, if somebody already knew what it is that you need to do in order to reach those goals, or if somebody already knew what your life looked like and they wanted to tell you what to do to get there, why would you not ask them? You know what I mean? Like, why would you not be like, God, what do you want me to do? He has the answers, Sway. Like, why would you not do that? You know what I mean? It makes sense to consult the person who has all the answers. And so again, you guys, the business and the spiritual are not separate. We have to start treating them as one. If you're saying that on my lunch break at work, I'm going to work on my business, then you need to say on my lunch break at work, I'm going to go pray and ask God, like, what does he want me to do in my business that day? And then I'm going to go work in my business. Like, that's how you really start merging the two. When you have a major opportunity and it looks like the opportunity of a lifetime, and you got to stop and pause before you give an answer and be like, God, is this something that you want me to do? Like, I have this opportunity, but I don't want to go into this blind. I don't want the devil to destroy me by using something that I've been asking you for. So, tell me what to do. I have this big business meeting and I want to go in there and let people know who I am and what I'm capable of. So how do I go about this? You have to really stop and pray and be able to listen and hear from God. But it does take building a relationship to be able to hear from God. So there is a process to get into that point so that you're not just praying and just going and doing what you want to do anyway. It does take building that relationship. So this year, I want all of you guys, as you're growing your businesses, to really commit to growing your relationship with God, because he is going to give you the strategies that's going to skip whatever goals that you think you have. Like, when I look at what God has in store for me this year, I'm like, how, sir? Like, how is this going to happen? But I also have to have faith and understand that because he said it, it is so. So despite what I see, I have to operate on my faith instead of that. And so that's how I'm operating in my business now. When I have let me go to my next point first. My next point was, when you make room for God in your business, you have to understand that means you can't operate like everyone else. So that, again, goes back to making the spiritual and the business the same thing. You cannot operate like everybody else when God is the CEO of your business, when you're making room for God in your business. A good example of that is, I told you guys that God told me what my year was going to look like already. So I've had a few people, I have a lot of, I wouldn't say a lot, but I have a healthy amount of entrepreneur friends. And so around the end of the year, everybody's reflecting. It's pretty much the same. Everybody's reflecting about like, what went right, what went wrong in their year. And then at the beginning of the year, everybody's sharing goals. Like, what's your goals for this year? What you got going on? And I had to check myself recently, to be honest, because I'm not comfortable saying the amount that God told me I'm going to make in 2018. I mean, if I'm just being real with y'all, that's how I feel. I'm not comfortable saying it yet. And because of that, I've been asked multiple times, what's my revenue goal for 2018? And I'm like, why are people asking me this? Like, I'm not comfortable saying it, but I also understand, and I want you guys to understand, that your words have power. Like, you really, really have to watch what you say, because your words have so much power. So one thing that I wasn't going to do was say a number that was lower than what God told me, because let's use small numbers here. If God told me I'm going to make $100,000 that year and somebody asks me what my revenue goal is, I say 50,000 because it's comfortable for me. I may just make 50,000 because I just talked myself out my own blessing. I'm not comfortable with that. I'm not doing that. That's not happening. So when people have asked me, what's my revenue goal, I tell them the number that God told me. And me personally, I don't really like people to what's the best way to say this? I don't like unsolicited questions, as far as like, not like from you guys, but let's say if somebody asks me my revenue goal and I tell them, and then they start interviewing me like, all right, so what you gonna do? Like, where is that coming from? I'm not really having that conversation, because why? You know what I mean? Like, it's a waste of time. I don't really feel like pulling out my notebook to prove to you how I'm going to make this money. It is because God said so. But what I had to check myself, because somebody had called, multiple people had asked me my revenue goal. So one of the people, I was like, well, this is what it is, and God's going to tell me how to do it. And I purposely said God is going to tell me how to do it because I don't need them asking me those type of questions. I'm trying to eliminate people getting on my nerves here. And then the next one, another person asked me, like, yo, what's up? I'm calling on my entrepreneur friends, like, what's your revenue goal for this year? So I told him, and he was like, all right. So he did the math, like, all right, so this how much you going to have to make per month. So I'm going to call you every month and check on it. And I had to tell him straight up, like, listen, I don't really operate on what your calculator just said. I operate on what God told me. So you can very well call me and ask me if I made whatever that number that I'm supposed to make according to your calculations a month is. But if I tell you a number separate from that, understand that I'm still going to reach that revenue goal because God told me that. So I understand why, your intentions are good. I don't really fault people for being people. You know what I mean? Like, I know your intentions are good. I know this is like a motivational thing, but understand that I don't operate like you. You know what I mean? I operate based off of what God has told me, and that's what I'm going to go with. So whatever conventional business strategy says or conventional math, I don't care what anything says. I care what God says, and that's what it's going to be. But that just comes with a level of confidence, and to be honest, confidence that I did not have before 2017, if I'm being honest. So last year was really a year for me where God kind of really showed me what the rewards of my obedience would be. And so the same thing for me, I told you guys in the end of the year episode that tightening up spiritually is something that I'm working on this year. And that's one of those things, learning how to walk in what God says, even when it's uncomfortable. And it may sound crazy to be like, well, if he told you that you're going to be doing so well, like, why would you not tell everybody? Because it's uncomfortable. It is, because this making God my CEO thing is very new. That's why I want to let you guys into this conversation while I'm going through these things, like while this is happening, because I'm very much so a toddler in my walk with God. But God has shown out so much for me and done so much in my life. I want you guys to really see that as well. So as you see my success in business, understand where that's coming from. I'm not going to tell you guys. Now, don't get me wrong. I am great at what I do as far as business goes, but I have an advantage, which is God. So when you see me skipping steps that you think that I should be taking, or you see me skipping milestones that the average person takes, understand that I'm not working with average. I'm working with God, and I want you to do the same thing, because I want you to experience the same thing and more in your business. But that's not going to happen if you don't make God the CEO of your business, of your life, of your everything. If you don't understand that your business is contingent on the spiritual, you're going to always come up short. So I'm getting out of breath. The next thing I wanted to talk about was, oh shoot, I just lost my place. This is a big one. This is something I've heard multiple times over the last week, is that don't let these successful people fool you and into unintentionally worshiping false idols. And what I mean by that is, this has actually been on my heart a lot within the last week, and I've had plenty of conversations about this. I've heard a lot of other people that I'm close to talk about this as well. And it's that God really wants to insert himself back into the equation. What has happened, especially with us being in this entrepreneur world, trying to get ahead, trying to invest in ourselves and get as much information as possible to build successful businesses, what we end up doing is getting sucked into things that are not of God, or getting sucked into things that people have taken from Christianity and kind of tried to wash God out of it. So we start seeing things like, what you put into the universe comes back to you. I've never really liked that because I don't really know who the universe is. Like, what does that even mean? God created the universe. God created everything. So why would I talk to anybody else but God? Like, some of the stuff just really don't make sense, but we get caught up into it because it sounds good. Or or even like some people that we may follow practices other things like witchcraft or stuff like that. Even in Sophia Amoroso's book Girl Boss, she said that she was a witch in the book. So I read the book, but I read the book in like 2015, and me and God wasn't as close as we are then, so it really didn't stand out to me. But it's actually in the book that she's a witch. But it's like everybody is talking about girl boss this and girl boss that. And even with this podcast, like, we may call ourselves Black girl bosses, so it's different. But even with this podcast, one of the confirmations I got is that's another reason why the name of this show has to change, is because it has to be separate from stuff like that. As a Black girl boss, as a woman in business who is also a woman of God, we have to set the standard and bring God back into the equation, and stop and not end up like these people who try to use the law of attraction as why they're successful, or the having their crystals and chakras in line is why they're successful, or putting things into the universe and the universe conspire to give it back. Like, no, we need people who are very bold about God being the reason why, God, the Father of Jesus Christ, being the reason why we're successful. And that's another reason why I'm very vocal about my relationship with God as my business grows, so you guys can see it goes hand in hand. I ain't got not a near crystal. You know what I mean? I ain't got nothing extra going on. When I pray, I say in Jesus' name. Like, it's very, very specific, and I'm very specific about who I'm praying to and who I'm following, so that you guys could know that God doesn't just want to send you a husband. He doesn't just want to get you a promotion on your job, or he doesn't just want to do these things that we're asking him for. He wants to make us successful business owners too. He wants to make us successful entrepreneurs. He wants to make us influencers in this world. He wants everything plus more for you that you want, and it may sound simple, but I think for a lot of people, those two don't really overlap with each other. So I wanted to really talk about this on this podcast so that you guys could understand God is what's missing in your plan for this year. And your relationship with God is not something that you should be working on alongside your goals. Your relationship with God is the priority, and everything else comes after that. The order is God, family, and then business. You know what I mean? So we keep putting business and success in our business ahead, or making it number one. But number one is God, and we have to put him back where he belongs so that we can start seeing the results that we want to see in our business. So yeah, you guys, don't unintentionally be out here worshiping false idols, and don't get caught up into all of these books. I quote books all the time because I love books, but don't get so caught up into those books that you forget about the book that really has all of your answers, which is the Bible. And to be honest with y'all, like, I read a lot of these books, and because I'm also growing in my relationship with God, these books, like, perfect example is Think and Grow Rich. So much, that's my favorite book, but so much in Think and Grow Rich is in the Bible. And I'll be like, oh, so y'all just gonna be using the same stuff that's in the Bible, but just taking God out of it and doing, oh, okay, I see what we're doing here. You know what I mean? That's what a lot of those books are doing. So again, that should tell you, why not just go to the source? Okay, so I know we talked about how. I know you guys are probably listening to this and you're saying, okay, Tatum, I hear you, but like how? What does that look like? I know when it came to my prayer journal, a lot of you guys DM me asking like, well, how do you journal? Like how is always the question. And so as I was taking my notes, before I started recording this, I had to pray and ask God to kind of just speak through me so that and tell me and guide me like what should I talk about. And one of the things that I got as I was preparing for this episode was Matthew 6-13. And so I read the translation in the Bible of the Message translation because thee, thou art, I don't know what that means. I need somebody to talk to me how I talk. And so the Message Bible does that for me. So I'm about to pull it up on my phone really quick because that answers the question of how. So in Matthew 6, 10-13, it's actually 7-13. It says in the Message translation, it says that the world is full of so-called prayer warriors who are prayer ignorant. They're full of formulas and programs and advice, peddling techniques for getting what you want from God. Don't fall for that nonsense. This is your Father you are dealing with, and he knows better than you what you need. With a God like this loving you, you can pray very simply. And I think this is dope because for you guys that's asking me, how are you journaling? How are you praying? It's not about what I'm doing. It's about this right here because I'm doing what works for me. But it's not like no overcomplicated formula to that you don't have to solve what's that formula that we learned in like high school, the Pythagorean, whatever, the I don't know. We don't got to serve no quadratic equations, you know what I mean, to unlock our blessings from God. So again, it says that the world is full of so-called prayer warriors who are prayer ignorant. They're full, guys, of formulas and programs and advice, peddling techniques for getting what you want from God. Don't fall for that nonsense. This is your Father you are dealing with, and he knows better than you what you need. With a God like this loving you, you can pray very simply. And it gives you an example. It says like this, and this is actually the Lord's Prayer. So if you go to the King James Version, the prayer that it says is, our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. That's the prayer that this is talking about. But again, this is the Message version, so it's a little less old school. But the prayer, it says you can pray very simply like this. Our Father in heaven, reveal who you are. Set the world right. Do what's best. As above, so below. Keep us alive with 3 square meals. Keep us forgiven with you and forgiving others. Keep us safe from ourselves and the devil. You're in charge. You can do anything you want. You are ablaze in this beauty. So really look at this for yourself, you guys, and read it in different translations so that you can kind of see which translation works best for you. But it says it right here in the Bible. And y'all know, I say on this podcast all the time, I'm not a Bible scholar. It's something that I'm really learning. But this scripture specifically, God told me. I did not find this. You know, I asked God, like, what do you want me to say? You know, I got my notes. I'm going with my heart on the things that I want to talk about on this show, but is there anything else you need me to say? And this scripture popped up. So I really, not popped up, but he told me this scripture and I went and looked it up and I could see why. So I really suggest that you guys go and check that out. Another scripture that he gave me was Matthew 8:18. And so, and this one is pretty much about what I got when I read this. I'm not going to read the whole thing here because I want you guys to really go and look this up for yourself. But what I got from this is that procrastination is also disobedience. So in that scripture, God was Jesus was just out there like healing people or whatever, right? Y'all know I gotta break this down and just talk to y'all regular because I'm nobody's pastor. But Jesus was pretty much just out here performing miracles. And so everybody was trying to come see what was going on. So once the crowd started forming around him, he was like, all right, y'all, we got to go. So he was telling his disciples like, all right, we need to go ahead to the other side of the lake. to get up out of here, right? So I'm cracking up in myself. So somebody, let me see. Hold on. So somebody came up to him and was basically like, God, I want to come with you wherever you go. So God was like, all right, but it's rough out here. Like, we not out here living in mansions or whatever. Like, rolling with me is not easy. And that's a word in and of itself. Rolling with God is not easy. All this stuff I've been talking about for however long I've been talking so far, this stuff is not easy. Incorporating God into your business or becoming one with your spiritual and your business life is not easy at all, because like I said, you got to go against a lot of things so that you can stay on track with what God told you. So it's not going to be easy. Just like building a business is not easy. Just like how this whole year we talked about how difficult it is to build a business from scratch. It's also difficult to build a business with God, but it's the best thing that you can ever do in your life. And I don't know about you guys, but I don't shy away from difficult. I do whatever is best for me, and God's way is best for me. So I'm just going to have to take these bruises and deal with the difficult part so that I can reap the rewards of my obedience. And so again, when the God told God that, hey, I want to come follow you, he was like, look, foxes have holes and the birds of the air have nests, but I'm homeless. I don't got nowhere to lay my head. You know what I mean? And once he said that, another one of the disciples was like, all right, well, can I go? Can you give me a couple days then? I need to go and do this, that, and the other. Like, I'm with you, but I need a couple days. And God was like, no, you don't have a couple days. And so that's the same thing with us. Procrastination is still disobedience. So no, you don't have the rest of 2018 to get it all out your system. You don't have the rest of this week. You don't have today. You know, tomorrow is not promised. So no, you don't. You can't procrastinate, because you're going to need to commit now. You know, God doesn't negotiate, and trust me, I've tried it. God does not negotiate with us. What he says goes, because he knows what's best for us, and he knows that the process is not easy. If it was easy, everybody would be out here living for God. You know what I'm saying? It's hard. You know, I told you guys how last year I began fasting, and in the beginning, fasting was difficult. I'm a foodie. I love to eat. So for me to not eat anything for 12 hours out the day is a lot. Now it's a little easier. It still ain't easy, but it was very, very difficult in the beginning. Now, with me still tightening up spiritually, it's still difficult. You know, I told you guys I'm working on my mouth this year. Man, it is hard. It is hard. I wish I could tell you I haven't cussed yet. I have probably dropped a few, you know, not probably. I have dropped more than a few, because it's hard to stop, because I'm so used to doing it. Second nature to have a smart mouth or to cuss or whatever. So it's something that I'm working on. You know, another thing that God has instructed me to do for 2018 is to not drink, because I need to be of sober mind at all times. Now, I was not an alcoholic before. Like, I wasn't like drinking every day, turn up every weekend. That wasn't my life. But y'all know I love wine. So it's difficult for me to be like, a whole year, Jesus, like no wine. So I can't find out, you know, if I'm having a nice steak, I can't find the perfect red to pair with the steak. Y'all know I like stuff like that. I want to own a winery, okay? But I can't, and it's difficult. Going to a restaurant, I'm used to ordering wine with my food, you know, because that's what I like, but I can't do that. So I'm a whole 7 days without drinking. I'm recording this actually on Sunday, January 7th. So I'm a whole 7 days obedient in that area. But yeah, it's not easy. It's not easy at all. It's not easy to submit and surrender everything to God. And I was telling one of my friends who's also very business savvy, like, we got to keep that in check, because once we decided to surrender our businesses to God and to live this holy life and commit ourselves to this, we have to keep our intelligence and our business acumen in check, because the devil will use that to allow us to outthink ourselves out of our blessing. And so we can't do that either. So yeah, you guys, I'm going to actually just end that right there. Really, really, this year, you guys, make room for God in your business. Seriously, don't unintentionally worship these false idols that people are pushing. Don't be out here praying to the universe. Pray to your Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. Okay. Don't be out here focusing on these possessions or worshiping these people who aren't even living their lives right. So if you guys have any questions about that, I know this is kind of like a whole sermon, but if you guys have any questions about that, any questions about how to strengthen your relationship with God, please do not hesitate to send me a DM. Also, please understand that I am not perfect one bit. I am 1,000,000% not perfect, but I'm somebody who's 100 million, trillion, billion, whatever, committed to my growth with God. You guys have seen over this past year how my relationship with God has grown and how I've been blessed because of it. So I want the same thing for you. You know what I mean? So please feel free to ask me any questions. I know what it's like to want to do better, want to have a stronger relationship with God, and not feel like to feel like I didn't have anybody to talk to, because I would rather talk to people who are like me. I wish I had somebody who was a young entrepreneur who loved God to talk to about that, because that would have been perfect for me. So please don't hesitate to shoot me a DM. I ain't gonna send you an invoice for it or nothing like that, but I really want you guys to grow your relationship with God and watch what he does in your business. So I'm going to take a break, and then we will be back. I'm still thinking that I'm talking to somebody. I will be back with questions. This episode of the Black Girl Boss Podcast is also brought to you by GoDaddy. GoDaddy.com is the world's largest domain name registrar. Domain names aren't all they do, though. They host websites, provide emails, phone numbers, and so much more. I personally use GoDaddy for all of my domain names. I love to buy my domains from GoDaddy because it's easy, they're inexpensive. I can claim multiple versions of that domain name. So let's say for blackgirlbosses.com, I could buy blackgirlbosses.net, .org, .me, .tv, .whatever, just to further protect myself and the brand. So I love GoDaddy. They have a great customer service system. I'm big on using companies who have great customer service, because sometimes you just need to call somebody and get help for whatever it is you're looking for. So they have, just like FreshBooks, they have a really, really great customer service team. So I am a huge fan and supporter of GoDaddy personally. But to learn more and to get your online presence started for your business, visit www.trygodaddy.com/blackgirlboss. Again, that's trygodaddy.com/blackgirlboss. Let's get back to the show. And I'm back with questions. So you guys, don't forget, we have a new format for submitting questions. If you have a question that you want answered live on the show, go to www.blackgirlbosses.com, click on the Ask a Boss tab, and ask your questions right there, and I will answer it on the show. It is anonymous, so I won't even know who you are, so feel free to ask me whatever you want. Okay, the first question is, what are your top 3 goals for the new year? Number 1 is to just continue just growing with God, to be on one accord with everything he wants me to do. Number 2 is to prepare for my marriage. I've told you guys 100 times before how important family is to me and how I want to have a successful marriage. So that's a goal for me. So what that looks like is me preparing for marriage is that my fiance and I have to go to premarital counseling. That is a non-negotiable for me. And he's going. It's not like he doesn't want to go. So premarital counseling is what we're going to do. I'm also going to go to therapy by myself. So because of my upbringing and because of my family dynamic and how there are so many single independent women in my family, I want to make sure that I break that generational curse in a sense and kind of really address a lot of my wounds, I guess, from my upbringing to make sure I don't take anything into the marriage. So I want to be whole and really make sure I'm intentional about covering all my bases prior to marriage. So that's my second goal, is to prepare for marriage. And my third goal, of course I have like business goals and stuff like that, but my third biggest goal is to really just have fun this year. I worked really hard last year. And that's not to say I'm going to work less hard this year, but we started the podcast last year. I continued my youth program for both semesters last year. I started my coaching practice last year. I acquired a nice roster of clients last year. So I did a lot last year. And so this year, I really, really want to. I quit my job last year. Oh my God, that's a lot. So I finished my book last year. Oh, okay, Tatum with the wins. I'm sitting here thinking out loud. But yeah, I want to have more fun this year. So I'm going to be doing a lot of crazy things. So y'all probably see me. I don't know. I'm not going to skydive. I'm not going that crazy, but I don't know. I just want to have a lot more fun this year and be intentional about not just being a slave to my goals. Next question. Congrats on your engagement. Thank you. What is the theme of your wedding and your colors? Great question. So, you know what's interesting is that I've always wanted to be married and have a family and things like that, but I never cared about the actual wedding. And I didn't even really realize that until I got engaged and everybody had all these questions. And so I was like, what are y'all even talking about? So then I started doing like my research, and I was like, shout out, man, all of you guys that's listening that are wedding planners, shout out to you guys, because I could never. So like, as I'm looking, and no, I'm not looking for a wedding planner, guys, so please don't take that as an opportunity. But I just can't. So we're going to do a destination wedding, because weddings are also very expensive, and I'm not about to be wedding broke. I'm not about to be in debt for no wedding. I'm not about to be any of that for one day, because the wedding is really about other people. As far as I'm concerned, if I can't call you if I'm having marriage problems and you really have sound advice for me, then I'm not about to be spending $50,000 to appease you. That's my mood. And so, yeah, weddings are very expensive. So we're going to do a destination wedding, which is very, way more affordable than the usual wedding here. So we're going to do that. We're going to Jamaica, so I'm excited. I've never been to Jamaica before, so we're getting married in Montego Bay in January. We're getting married January 19th, 2019. So almost a year away from being married, so I'm definitely excited. My colors are, I haven't really decided yet, but I'm looking at like white, rose gold. I like regular gold, and that's as far as I've gotten. I told you I'm not into the wedding thing like that. But I have found like some cute stuff online. So like my bridesmaid proposal boxes are really cute. I got those off of Etsy. I saw like these really cute, like, passport style wedding invitations. So I'm going to do those. So, I want to do our engagement shoot at a hangar, which is, a place where like planes and helicopters and stuff fly in and out of. So I want to do like a photo shoot there. So I'm thinking just a lot of constants that people are probably going to see as it relates to the wedding is travel. But yeah, that's as far as I've got. So that's where we're at right now. Yeah. So thank you so much for your well wishes. I had another question in my DM. Let me grab it real quick. Okay, so it says, hey Tatum, hope you had a wonderful new year. Love what you're doing with the podcast. I'm truly a super fan. Thank you. I wanted to submit a question and maybe you can answer on the podcast. One of my goals for the new year is growing my network and surrounding myself with those who are where I want to be. You talk a lot about your mastermind group. I wanted to know if you had any suggestions on how I can find a similar group or the best places to look for networking in the networking events in the DC area. So I really don't go to networking events in the DC area because because DC is like politics and stuff like that. It's a lot of it's a lot of young professionals in DC, and it's always a lot of, so what do you do? It's kind of like an ego contest, which is super annoying for me. I met my mastermind group in a business coaching program. So that's one way. Get around people who are investing a significant amount of money into them reaching their goals. So that way, one, you know that they're like-minded, and two, you know that they're willing to actually sacrifice to get what they want. So those are some really good qualifiers. So also look at different, so even if you don't join like a business coaching program, look for like events where people have to spend money to be at. The free ones is I would stay away from those. Go to places like conferences. You can go to like brunches or things like that. Really look at people that you admire and see what events they're at. And go to those type of events. Don't be afraid to go to kiss a few frogs to get to your prince. You know what I mean by that is, don't be afraid to go to some whack events to better understand the type of events that you like. Pay attention to like the speakers that you see on the event, and research the speakers to kind of see the caliber of the event. Also, don't be afraid to research past events by the organizer so that you can see if the other things that they do align with what you want to do. Yeah, that would be my advice. Is to just really do your research, and don't be afraid to just go to some stuff and see what happens. Okay, I think that was it's for the questions. So yeah, if you guys have any questions, definitely submit those at www.blackgirlbosses.com. And don't forget to email me your wins of the week, and I will record those, shout you out, give you your roses while you can still smell them. And yeah, so don't forget to submit those on the website as well. And that's it, you guys. I will talk to you guys next week.